we've got some great questions. And this one I think is interesting. I hadn't really considered it. The Fig Game Hunt 6946 over on YouTube says, at this time, was it always the plan to elevate Triple H over the summer of 99? Or was there potential that would have been more of a slower burn if it were not for injuries to Stone Cold? This is one of my favorite times as a wrestling fan. I was 14 and looking forward to every single week. Now, we know by November, and we're only in July here, so we're a few months away, but not terribly far away. Austin's going to decide, hey, man, I don't want to, but I got to go get surgery. I'm going to have to step away for a bit. So we do need to make new stars. Do you think, just like in sports, injuries create opportunities on the depth chart, and that is what fast tracks Triple H?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was, we were kind of backed into a corner. Triple H was younger, healthier. He had earned his stripes, shall we say, and he did a great job. But I think that injuries create opportunities if it's done correctly, and this one was done correctly.
Brent Barnett Hunting says, Jim, one thing I remember from this match is Shane taking a brutal chair shot from Austin. How did Vince feel about the bumps Shane put himself through?
Never heard him comment on it. Hit him harder, maybe. Vince didn't protect Shane, and Shane sure as hell paid his dues, man. He took a lot of abuse and was used as a key element in the build, key element in the finishes. So, and I never heard Shane complain one time about something being too stiff, too rough. Tough kid, boy. And of course, he had his dad's legacy to live up to, and that seemed to go right along with the territory. Shane had a lot to prove. He was the owner's son, but nobody showed him any I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but nobody showed him any kindness. He got the shit beat out of him more often than not.
I want to ask you about something, and maybe I shouldn't, but there's been much ado made about the show that happened, as folks are listening, 8 days ago in Nashville. Blood and Guts, the main event. It was the Elite versus Team AEW. And Mark Briscoe delivered a chair shot to Jack Perry. That boy spun up the internet and got everybody hot and bothered. I know you weren't there that night, but I also know that there are people who work behind the scenes for AEW. WWE used to have a guy who handled magic. Richie Posner was the guy's name. I'm not going to say the fellow's name here, but I know that AEW has a person who handles that in a similar fashion. Good guy. But there's been a lot made about that chair shot. And I, on the one hand, understand when we get concerned about the long-term health of the performers. But at the same time, I got to trust that these performers and the company are taking calculated risks, including setting a guy on fire, putting a mouthful of thumbtacks in, taking bumps, off ladders, through panes of glass, on the edge of the ring, power bombs, things like this. But people seemingly lost their mind about this chair shot, where I know a little bit of magic was involved. But the idea that we have to come out and defend that and discuss it feels weird to me. The name of the damn show is Blood and Guts. If you don't want to see simulated violence, don't watch a show called Blood and Guts. What do you think of the chair shot? And what do you think of chair shots? If they believe they're done safely, can they be used sporadically like blood? Because once upon a time, we were saying no more blood, no more chair shots. We're seeing a little bit more of both now, but people are saying use sparingly, in moderation, and as safely as we can. You can make a calculated risk and a decision. What say you?
Still got to be careful with it. You got to be very judicious of how often it's used and where it's used, so forth. I don't know that our man, Mr. Dudley, I don't know if he knows any other way of doing it. That was an ECW chair shot.
Yeah.
And he came from downtown with it, man, and it resonated through another man's brain. So I can understand people's concern, and by and large, I agree with them. That shot could have been on the back of the head, the upper back, shoulder blade area, but still, man, it resonated right off the man's head. And I was uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you. But I understand why it was done. I understand the environment that we were in on that show. When I saw it, watching it here at home, I was mildly shocked that it came from such velocity and harmful intent. And thank God I think they only used it once, if I remember correctly. So it was it's tough, man. It's how far do you go? What's too much? What's not enough? I would just suggest that there are ways to get the same violence without scrambling a guy's brains.
Let's do a few more questions here. Bobby wants to know, was anyone in the front office aware of what was going on in Turner with regards to the AOL Time Warner merger and the effects it was having on the WCW product? I know you're watching the show, you're seeing what their business is, you're recruiting talent to come over, but do you have any idea what the corporate chaos is like on the WCW side of things at this point?
Most of them in the corporate side just didn't want to get that involved.
Yep.
They just didn't want to get that involved. They didn't know what was safe and what wasn't safe. And if it's not safe, why are we doing it? All that stuff. So it was an interesting quandary because you got administrators that really don't understand the product as much as they like to let on that they do. So yeah, I'm on the page of caution. There's got to be something else we can do. I'm not big on all the thumbtack stuff and putting stuff in their mouth and all this. You know, you're a swallow away from disaster. You don't want to be swallowing a mouthful of thumbtacks, for God's sakes. And how much did it add to the match? How viable was it to the whole process? I argue the fact that sometimes that stuff is overrated.
Let's mention that next week we've got a very special episode coming up. I'm pretty excited to talk about this. Pumped is the right word. We're going to talk about when Vince was acquitted from all charges brought on him by the federal government and how your time in the WWF comes to an end again. That's what we'll be doing next week here on the program. We'd love to have your interactions and your questions. You can find us at the place you can find all things JR, grillingjr.com. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. You'll know the next time we go live. We've got all of our episodes there and lots of new clips all the time at grillingjr.com. Totally free.